Hello, Carrie Roberts here, and I'm going to walk you through the process from start to finish of creating a new atomic and submitting it back to the Atomic Red Team project through a pull request. When we talk about Atomic Red Team, there are two key GitHub repositories that we often talk about. One is the main Atomic Red Team repo, and the other is the Invoke Atomic Red Team repo. So the Atomic Red Team repo, it has a folder called the Atomics folder. It's a folder named Atomics, and it's full of other folders that are named according to their MITRE ATT&CK technique number, and inside of each technique folder or T folder is a definition of all the atomic tests that are inside of that technique. And an atomic test, or atomic for short, are just commands to execute in order to run various cyber attacks. Secondly, Invoke Atomic Red Team is an execution framework, so it's something we can use to run those commands defined over in the Atomics folder, and it simplifies test execution. So instead of copying and pasting commands out of a definition file, we can just pick and choose tests to run using an execution framework. So for this demo, I've already installed Invoke Atomic Red Team, the execution framework, and imported the module so that those functions are ready to use. You'll need to do that too in order to follow this demonstration. You can go to github.com/redcanary/invoke atomic red team, and especially go to the wiki. The wiki is full of helpful information as shown in that table of contents there, including how to install and import the module. So please do that before you follow along with this demo. So to start, we are going to write a new atomic test. So first we're going to bring up PowerShell, and we're going to use the execution framework to look at what tests we have available. So here we say invoke atomic test. We're going to look at technique T10003.002, and we're just going to say show details brief, and it'll list out the tests that we have available to us in this technique. We see we can parse the registry with PyPyCats tool. We're going to add another test to this technique to dump the SAM system and security registry hives. So to do that, we're going to use a tool called the Atomic GUI. The Atomic GUI is also described on the wiki, and you can review that there. But to use the Atomic GUI, we can just say start Atomic GUI. And once it starts up, it loads up our default web browser and shows this atomic test creation page. It's just a form that we can fill out to define our test. We could also define our test manually by just editing the YAML files that we find in the Atomics folder, but since YAML is not especially easy to read and to keep organized, we're going to use this form so that we can make sure we have proper spacing and the right format for our YAML. So for this atomic test, we want to add a test that's going to run these three commands, which is to use reg.exe to save the SAM system and security hives to the temp directory. So we copy these, and here in our form we can paste these in as the attack commands. We also will give this test a name, maybe dump credentials from Windows registry, and we could give it a description. I just give it a very simple description here for brevity here on our demo, but we select the operating system it's for, which is Windows. We select where these commands should be executed for Windows, whether PowerShell or command prompt, and we check this box if elevated privileges are required to successfully run this test. And in order to access these registry hives, we do need to have administrative privileges, so we check that box. And we can optionally add cleanup commands. Cleanup commands just make it so we can run this test again without running into any problems, or just get rid of temporary files. And so we do have some cleanup commands listed here, which we will paste in so we can include that in our YAML. So we put these in here. If we scroll down, there's also an option to add input arguments, but that's optional. So if you have some input arguments you want people to be able to specify as they run the test, you can put those here. I'm going to remove this because we aren't doing that. And the same for prerequisites. If there's certain dependencies, software files that have to exist in order for this test to run, we can list them there. But I will remove it for this test. Now all we need to do after we fill out a form is generate the YAML. So we click generate test definition YAML, and here we have a nice YAML file all laid out perfectly with our description and our test name, supported platforms, the commands we should run, the cleanup commands, whether elevation is required. So if we scroll down, we can use this copy button. So now we want to go over, we see that we're running tests from the install directory, Atomic Red Team /Atomics. So we can say Notepad, C, Atomic, Red Team, Atomics, and we want to edit the T1003.002 YAML file. So we open that up and we see that there's one test, the registry parse with PyPyCats. We're just going to add our new test right here to the bottom, and we will save this file and go try to run it. So before we run it, let's just show details brief. Oh, and we got an error that says I couldn't load the YAML, there's a problem parsing it. And so I wanted to show this because it's likely a problem you will run into during development, but that means there's something wrong with our YAML. And we used the Atomic GUI to generate our YAML, so really the only reason why it would come out of there not being proper YAML is just the initial indentation. So if we go back and look at our YAML file, we see that we pasted in our new test all the way indented to the left. But if we look at the first test actually has test indented 2 spaces, and since YAML is a spacing dependent language, this makes this file not parsable. So we need to match. Our new test has to be indented to the same level as all the other tests in this file. So we could go down here and we could put 2 spaces before everything and hopefully get that right. But the Atomic GUI also helps us out there because it has these indentation buttons. So we could just say, please indent, 2, 4, 6 spaces, or go back to no indentation. So we just want to press this indentation once because we need 2 spaces on everything and recopy it. Go back into our file and let's replace this test now with our properly indented test. And then we save this file and go try that again. And we see we have 2 tests now, the second one being our new test, dump credentials from Windows registry. So we're gonna specify this test number 2 that we want to run. We'll do show details just to see if it's what we expect, and it is. We see our commands and our cleanup commands. So let's go ahead and run this test. It quickly executes. We can check that these files are found in our temp directory. And we see SAM, security, and system. And then we could follow that up and make sure our cleanup commands work. And it says it's done cleaning up. Let's check for those files, and they have went away. So we've confirmed that our test works, and we are ready to commit that same code as a pull request into our repo. Let's grab a copy of our YAML that we've tested and confirmed works as expected. We will go to the Atomic Red Team repo on GitHub by Red Canary Co. And we are logged in as ourselves. So we must have a GitHub account and be logged in. we need to find this file that we want to edit, which is in the Atomics folder. Here we have the technique folder, so T1003 number 2. We're going to go into the YAML file, and we want to edit this file. So we just click the little pencil to edit this file, and we go to the bottom of the test, and make sure we're starting at the right indentation, and we paste in our test, and then we give it a name like new reg dump test, and we might give it a description, and then we leave the create a new branch. It's going to put a branch within our own repo so that we can submit a pull request, which is a request for the maintainers to include this change in the Atomic Red Team repo, the official one. So we commit changes, and then it brings us to the open pull request page, and this is where we can give a greater detail on what changes we've made, what testing we've done, any issues we know of. It's important to scroll down and check what's going to be different in this file you're suggesting, so it shows that we're adding only those last lines for our new test and nothing that we didn't expect, so that looks good. And lastly, after filling out the rest of this description, we would just click create pull request, and that's all we need to do. I'm not going to do it here because there actually is already a test of this nature in there, but I had taken it out for this demo. At that point, you can always come back to Atomic Red Team and click on the pull request tabs, and you'll find your pull request there if it's still waiting for approval and being merged. If you want to see it after it's been merged, you can remove this is open filter and just search for all pull requests, and then you could look in the list and find your pull requests and see any comments about it and see if it's merged. If it's merged, it will show up purple like this.